Hey friend, I'm Danielle Damrell, and I am so grateful that you're listening to the Created Worthy podcast. This show is all about honoring the life stories of women from different ages, beliefs, backgrounds, and experiences. Everyone's got a story, and instead of getting stuck in the trap of unworthiness, this is a safe place for stories to be shared. On this show, we chat about the transformative power of creative processing too, and how we can utilize our God-given creativity with intention to heal, grow, find joy, create simplicity in the midst of our chaotic lives. So pull up a seat at our table because we are all created worthy. Hello, welcome back to the Created Worthy podcast. Today, I am joined by another worthy warrior, Bernadette Marciniak. Bernadette is a speaker, best-selling author, and brand videographer and photographer for 6- and 7-figure entrepreneurs. A former reporter, photojournalist, and video journalist, she now uses a very specific storytelling approach to amplify the message and maximize the impact of business owners through powerful visuals. Today, she runs Solhaus Media, a boutique all-female media agency which has served over 100 clients with images and videos that creatively convert audiences into customers. She is based out of the Los Angeles and NYC tri-state area, and Bernadette and I actually met last year during a work event in the LA area and pretty much immediately connected. She is a brilliant creative that carries an essence of peace, confidence, and a complete desire to truly capture the moment at hand. Ever since meeting over a year ago, we've talked about this day. So Bernadette, thank you so much for joining us on the Created Worthy podcast. I can't wait to finally hear even more about your real life story.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I can't believe that was over a year ago. We were just talking about that.
Yeah.
Feels like the blink of an eye, right?
Right? A year and a half. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, sometimes these years feel so long in the moment, but then in reflection, it's like, that was yesterday. What in the world?
No, I'll tell you, this year has actually felt really quick in real time. So
Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's good. I think motherhood for me is what makes sometimes my days feel very, 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 very long.
I can understand that. I mean, I don't personally understand.
I get what you're saying.
I get it. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here. I'm so freaking glad that we're finally connecting and get to talk about you all this whole episode. So just to start, I would love for you to take us back to where your life started off. Like, where are you from? Can you paint a picture for us about what life was like growing up for you?
Yeah, so I am just shy of saying that I was born and raised in New Jersey because I was actually born in Queens, New York. So I am still at my heart also a New Yorker.
Yeah.
But when I was very young, my parents moved us to New Jersey, where I stayed until I moved to LA in 2018. And that is definitely where my creativity flourished, if you will. At the risk of sounding like super cliche, it did all start when I was 4 years old, and my grandfather, my grandfather gave me a Polaroid camera. My family was very big into documenting. My mom actually used to be a photographer in Poland. Both of my parents are from Poland. I am first generation American. So I actually, fun little fact, I didn't learn how to speak English until I was 5 years old. English is my second language.
What?
I know.
I did not see that coming because you speak so you just have an incredible cadence. Like you speak very well.
Well, thank you. Oh my gosh, that's very good to hear because I get very self-conscious about it a lot of times. My Polish did used to be better than my English. Now, not so much, although I can still speak it fluently. Yeah. My mom and I speak what we like to call Polglish to each other. So when we can't just figure out the words in real time, we'll sub them out. But anyway.
So you can still currently speak fluently in Polish.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
And
amazing.
it's not the easiest language to learn. You can ask my boyfriend.
Yeah,
He's
I
been
believe that.
trying. Yeah. Yeah. I had a camera in my hand since I was 4 years old. And then my dad actually gave me my next camera when I was 8. It was a 35 millimeter, point and shoot camera. And it kind of came with a little bit of a sentence though, because when he gave me that camera, he kind of designated me as the unofficial family photographer. So whenever we used to like go out to family functions or even just carving pumpkins on a Saturday afternoon in the fall, he'd be like, "Where's your camera? Why aren't you taking pictures of this? Where's your camera? Where's your camera?"
Yeah.
So,
So it was almost an expectation. It became an expectation
yeah,
early on.
yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm a kid and I just
Yeah.
want to enjoy, the moment instead of constantly worrying about where's my camera. And yeah, joke's on me now because I mean, we all have cameras in our hands, but
But you got like the real cameras, like
I
the
have a
pro
real
ones.
camera. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I kind of inadvertently fell into like continuing to do photography and videography throughout the years. Like I had no desire to do it. To your point, you say that I'm very well spoken. I actually did get a degree in English when I went to college
Wow.
with the intention of going into journalism, which I did. But even then, somehow the universe did what it does. And at my last full-time job in New Jersey was as a photojournalist. My editor, who I had been freelance writing for, I needed a full-time job at that point, and he was like, I don't have anything for a reporter right now, but you like to take pictures, right? I was like, yeah, I guess so. And he asked me to come in with a portfolio. And I had no portfolio because I had still just been, counting this as a hobby. So I
Yeah.
brought a link to a Facebook album I had created that summer of a cross-country road trip I had been on. But because I focus on photographing people and, communities and emotions, it's what ultimately got me the job. And then after that, I did that for 5 years, and we got acquired by the USA Today network. And at that
Wow.
point, yeah, sounds cool, but we knew that layoffs were going to be on the
Mm.
horizon. And I was told that I had to learn video if I wanted to avoid getting laid off. And I did it kicking and screaming. Like I knew how to, I did like camcorder video when I
Right.
was a kid. They made me learn it anyway. And then 6 months later, me and the editor who told me that I needed to learn video, we both got canned. So
So you got canned anyway.
got canned anyway, but it ended up being a blessing in disguise because I ended up getting a job at the newspaper I had dreamed of working since I was a kid. Obviously not as a video journalist, but that was the job that I got hired for. And I stayed there until we moved to Los Angeles.
Wow. I
Yeah.
love hearing stories like that where it's like the thing that seems like it should be really, really hard. And at the moment, I'm sure like you had no idea that you were going to be hired by your dream newspaper, but those actually become the miracle moments in our lives where it's like
Yeah.
that thing had to happen in order for you to get to that next step. And then that next
Mhm.
step led you to LA.
Mhm.
And then the story we will continue to hear.
Yeah.
So, are you an only child?
I'm not. I have
Okay.
a younger brother. He is 6.5 years my junior. I vividly remember when my mom told me that I was getting a sibling because I feel like I had been begging for it. I don't want to generalize, but I feel like most age differences between siblings are like 4 years max.
Yeah. 2 to 4. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 to 4. And I had just been begging and begging for a sibling. I feel like I wanted a sister first, but then I remember wishing upon a star for a brother that would be my best friend, and that is exactly what I got.
Oh, that is so sweet. Like, were you guys best friends pretty much your whole life then? Because 6.5, like you're old enough then to like play mom, right? But you're not actually old enough to like watch him by
Yeah.
yourself until later, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think I was in high school when I started watching him by myself, although I feel like I had been babysitting other families in the neighborhood before that. In any case, I feel like we were definitely much closer than a lot of the siblings that my friends had. Like I was very close with him, but there was always that like kind of knowing that the age difference is big. Like I never got to go through the whole thing of like having my brother in the same school with me,
Mhm.
although all of my teachers remembered me when he came up after me. That being said, I grew up in the age of Rugrats on
Oh,
Nickelodeon. I know.
yes.
I,
Rugrats.
such a great show. Where
Yes.
are those shows nowadays?
Seriously. And the movie, Rugrats the movie, and what was it in Paris?
It
No,
was in
they
Paris, and it was
yeah.
the orange VHS tape.
Yes, that's right. I think I might still have that in a box somewhere, but I
I'm
will never
fairly
forget
certain. I know,
Rugrats.
right? Right. So, because I grew up in that age, you saw brothers and sisters fighting there, and I kind of like thought that's what you were supposed to do.
Mhm.
And so, like, we definitely, and by we, I mean me, ragged on each other a lot. There were a lot of rowdy after school afternoons, some of which I don't think he would want me to share on the podcast.
That's
I
fair.
could I could be really really I don't think I want to share either because now
Yeah.
looking back I'm like, "Oh my God, what did I do? I traumatized the kid."
I think
um
that's like a pretty common thing in sibling
I think
relationships.
so. Yeah. Yeah.
Because we were watching Rugrats. Come on.
Exactly. Exactly. Which now I understand why my mom hated that show.
Yeah.
She did not like me watching it.
Yep. Totally. So, real quick, I know that you've mentioned a few times your boyfriend. So, obviously, been in a relationship for quite some time now. So, how did you two meet and how long have you been together?
Do you want the fun story or do you want his story?
Both. But I want you to start with a fun story.
That's my go-to answer whenever somebody asks me. So my version of the story, which is so
Yeah.
much more fun, is that I met him at a rock show he was playing at and I was there with a guy that I was dating at that time.
Sometimes things just happen that way. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That guy uh, definitely didn't stick around for long, but the unfun version of this is that this show was actually it wasn't an open mic night, but it was a show at the local Starbucks because
What?
my then boyfriend was friends with the bassist of the band, and they had like an acoustic set at Starbucks one evening. And my boyfriend was he plays the keys. So I think I may have only like said one or two words to him that night, but he kept coming around to our like group events. He kept getting invited, um and then we actually both kind of started getting into photography around the same time. So we had a common thread. He is also a photographer, but he works
Okay.
in a different space than I do. He works in the esports industry, which is competitive video gaming. And we actually from the time that we met to the time that we started dating was actually 8 years. And we just
Wow.
celebrated our 7-year anniversary of dating. So we've known each other for 15 years this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so cool. I love that you were able to like develop a friendship, it sounds like. So for that entire time you were in New Jersey, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then so he must have just been in the same circle of friends if he kept.
Yeah, it was actually my friend Katie, I think, who kept inviting him to group events, and
Did
then
she
everybody.
know? Was she like, I think this?
No, no, she's just one of those people who, it has kind of the mantra of the more the merrier, and
Yeah.
so he wasn't the only one who got into our friend group that way. But then he started getting invited by everybody to everything. So yeah, that's how
That
we
is
saw
so
each other a
fun.
lot. Yeah, yeah.
I love that there's the fun story and then the like his story because I'm sure he had no idea that you liked him. Or
Oh yeah,
I bet at the time you actually probably
I
didn't think
I
about it at all. You were with
I
someone
didn't
else.
think about it at all. Honestly, I didn't think about it until I would say even like 5 or 6 years later. And I think the same goes for him. But then we started like bonding, like I said, over the photography. We're also big wine drinkers and foodies. So we would spend
Yeah.
a lot of time together. We were essentially dating without actually having the label on it. But
Are you guys the couple that like take really beautiful photos of each other when you're traveling?
he takes
Like
really
in
beautiful photos
Paris
of
or
me. I feel like I don't I don't really. Actually, that's not fair. I take really great candid shots of him because I can tell that if he notices me taking a photo of him, he might kind of tense up a little bit.
Yeah.
Although I feel a little bit bad because we just went to Italy last month, and he asked me to take like some photos of him in a new outfit he was wearing because he like, and for him to even ask me that was
Yeah.
something else. And so I felt a little bit bad because I don't think I got the photos that he had envisioned in his head, and I was like, but you always do such a good job with mine.
At least you tried.
I tried.
I thought you were gonna say like I just completely forgot and we didn't get any photos.
Oh no,
So
no, no, no. We got some. We got some.
good.
Yeah.
Well, good job for trying. Going back to your career in journalism, when you moved to LA, were you still working for that newspaper, or what caused you to switch into becoming a creative business owner yourself?
Yeah. So long story, I'm not going to make it short.
Yeah, just tell it. That's what
Yeah,
Creative Worthy
so
is
I was
for.
actually still doing when I started doing photography professionally for the newspaper. I started, meeting other photographers, and I remember one of them had told me like, "Oh, have you tried your hand at wedding photography? There's a lot of money to be made in there." And I was like, "Oh, really?" So I actually had a side business of doing weddings and portraits. And at that point, I wasn't niching down. So I did anything, but primarily weddings and portraits, family portraits. I did that basically since I began photography professionally in 2012 to now it just has a different iteration. So what ended up happening was my boyfriend got a job in Los Angeles, which is why we moved out here. And I had always wanted to go full time with my own photography business. As much of a dream as it was to work for my childhood dream newspaper, it didn't turn out the way that I had envisioned it when I was a kid, and I won't get into a lot of that today. But I was ready to be on my own, and so the move to LA just kind of gave me this great opportunity to start fresh. And I did look for jobs while when we moved here, but nothing panned out. So I just used that opportunity to keep growing my photography business. And at that time, or not even keep growing, but actually, like, if we're going to be real, start it, because I had just, been
It was still
essentially
more of
doing
like
it
a
as
hobby.
it was a hobby when I was in New Jersey. Like, it was great, and it gave me a lot of great experience. So yeah, when we moved here, I still did a little bit of wedding photography, but I always was doing second shooting. I assisted other photographers, and actually video helped out a lot in that regard because photographers were hiring me to take their videos.
Mm.
But ultimately, I decided that I wasn't going to do weddings. It's a very saturated market, and honestly, I was kind of losing my affinity with doing wedding photography. I'll still do it every once in a while, But I really, really fell in love with the idea of working with other small business owners because wanted to be a small business owner myself. And I, could relate with the idea of not wanting to work for somebody else's dream.
Right. I love that. I love that you were able to identify that in your career journey because I think sometimes, like, I know quite a few wedding photographers who have just kind of gotten caught in that
Mhm.
industry and they're like, this is just a job now. And so the
Yeah.
creativity side of it is just like they're drained of their creativity. So you went from wedding photography to brand photography in what year?
2018.
In 2018. And so is that really where you felt like you started stepping into alignment with what you felt called to do with your business?
That's an interesting question because I don't know that I know what I'm called to do. If we're going to be like
That's
real,
okay.
raw, and honest,
I love
like,
that's what this is for because sometimes we
perfect.
don't have the answers to the questions.
What I can, and I feel weird saying that because I can't imagine myself doing anything else at this current moment. I can tell you that I can't imagine myself, going out with all my gear when I'm in my 50s either. Maybe I will. Maybe that's something that I'll still want to do. And I love doing it. I have actually gotten really good at owning the fact that I'm really fucking good at what I do.
You
That
are.
being said, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I don't know if it's what I'm necessarily called to do. It's just a skill that I have. And I know that it's like not necessarily a skill that everybody has or even one that everybody can learn, because I take that storytelling approach to what I do very seriously, given my background in journalism. But I do feel like this is definitely way more in alignment than wedding photography, and working with small business owners is definitely more in alignment. I just don't want to necessarily put myself in the box of that this is all I meant to do.
Yeah.
I like to leave room for expansion.
And I noticed in your bio, the very first title that you have is speaker. So why don't you tell me a little bit about being a speaker and becoming a best-selling author? Those are some pretty exciting titles.
I think this might be the first time I'm flaunting those titles. We're going in and we're owning it.
Yes,
This
we're owning it.
episode. This is a big deal. I just realized. My goodness. So, speaker, I have always watched people up on stage just command the scene, command the room, uh, with a message that they're really confident in. And so this year I will have gotten, I know it's still a small number, but I will have been on 2 stages. Actually, more if you count virtual, but two
Yeah.
physical stages. People seem to like what I have to say and how I say it. So I'm gonna keep doing it because, like I said, I had always wanted to do it. And then my best-selling book, I co-authored a best-selling book as part of a mastermind that I'm in. I know you and I are both familiar with it. It's The
Yes.
Inner Circle with Rebecca Cafiero as part of the Pitch Club. And our the theme of our book was called Owning It. So everybody had a chapter on something they own, and my chapter was on owning your image. Again, one of those things that I've wanted to do is author a book, and now I kind of have the bug to keep doing more.
So is that what you talk about on stages as well? Is your image?
So when I talk about owning your image, I'm talking about it in the context of visibility for
Yeah.
your business, which feels a little imposter. My imposter syndrome is telling me right now, who am I to speak on visibility because I have been a little invisible the last few weeks. But I think that is actually the gift of visibility,
Yes.
is that you, if you do a good job of putting quality content out there, whether that's social, whether that's getting up on stages, whether that's being on podcasts. People are still going to be hearing your message in different places. It has a shelf life that's longer than I think we give it credit for. And so people, there's this like myth, I think, that goes around that says, like, if you don't show up consistently, people are going to forget that you exist. I don't know that that's necessarily true. Nobody's forgotten that I exist. And that's the gift of visibility, is that when I'm visible, like, people notice. And when I'm not visible, people don't notice. They might be like,
well, and the impact of when you were visible is still lasting. So it's almost as if you are still being visible.
Exactly.
When you're feeling invisible, or you're taking yourself out of the like front end for a season.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's more about showing up when you have that energy, when when you're feeling called to. And there's definitely nuances to this, like when you're launching, or if you are trying to maybe pivot or scale or something like that. Right now I'm in a season of integration. So, I have been in so many masterminds and programs and everything like that. And my thing right now is that I want to integrate everything. And that's where we are.
And sometimes, most of the time, it actually takes removing yourself from the front end so that you can actually get to work on the integration portion, because that's a different part of being creative. At least that's how I have experienced it, is like if I'm writing speeches or individual podcasts or different trainings, more front end work, then I'm not building systems in my business at the same time. Like I can't do both. I've tried. And that's where burnout really comes in. And I think this is a really good transition into, I read your response when I asked about creative processing. And just to give the listeners a little recap, as I do on every episode, creative processing is a tool that we can all use to activate our creative minds to process through a certain intention. So really all it is using our innate creativity to heal or find joy or experience clarity or purpose or freedom in a tangible way. So it's the way that we practice it is by using a prompt like the purpose of, enter whatever the creative map or whatever the creative outlet is, whether that is building a system or brand photography. How we activate our creative minds ranges so much between people, but the prompt of the purpose of, enter your creative outlet, is to process, enter any certain intention. And when I asked you what your creative outlet was, or your creative processing outlet was, you said to detach. And I'm just going to, if you don't mind, I'm just going to read what you wrote, because I think that this is a conversation that we need to have. People need to hear this because it's so real, and it's 100% something I've experienced. And I can guess that many, many, many listeners who hear this is going to be like, yep, that's my experience as well. But you said to detach. Usually when I'm not feeling creative, it's because I'm burnt out. And so I found that the best medicine is to fully walk away from the work and trying to be creative. What I do during that time is another story. I've been having a hard time with that this year, to be honest. I've found that I've become incredibly attached to the work that I've lost sight of what I can do outside of it. And what this reminded me of when I read this was one of the very first creative processing workshops I did. I talked about how my creative processing story, like how I came to discover this as a healing modality, was actually because I hit the point in my career where I was hating everything I was creating. Like I got to this point, I started as a lettering artist. And so I did a lot of like physical art, and I shed so many tears about getting orders on Etsy. What should be a good thing, because it's like, oh, I made some money, was actually just so almost physically painful for me, because I was like, I hate this. I get that I can do it. And I hope that that's not where you're at. But I do think that it's something that a lot of people experience, maybe not to that extreme, but when your gift or your creativity becomes your work, it's really easy to get to this point where you're like, am I even creative? Like, do I even like to create? And the truth is, at least tell me if this is your experience, in your core, in your soul, you are clearly a creative. Now, when it's become something that you only ever do for work, or that's how you practice your creativity, is just in your work, and even in your childhood, it sounds like it was something you were conditioned to just do. Like it was almost something that it was something you were expected to do. So for it to become something that's like hard to find joy from is completely natural. And that's where I think creative processing can actually be really helpful, because it's not the difference between the creative process and creative processing is that the creative process leads to an external result. Creative processing is an internal result. It's entirely personal. And so the creative method that you choose to use when you're practicing creative processing is only a creative method that actually lights you up, that you want to do. Because no matter whether you recognize yourself as a creative or not, we all have a creative mind. We are creative beings, and how we create just looks differently. So if we can identify the ways that we actually enjoy creating, just making it as simple as possible and using it as a practice, truly practicing it so that it becomes a neural pathway that develops in your mind. So when something that's not good or something that is keeping you stuck comes up, it's a way to tangibly practice creative processing with a immediate end result. When I read this, like, I just was immediately taken back to that time in my life where I felt the exact same way. And I remember like the very first opportunity I got to do something different, which for me was graphic design rather than like physical design. I was so excited because I was like, this is different. And it doesn't feel like the same type of work, but it also was like a really scary thing because I felt like an imposter all the time, probably similar to how you feel with speaking. My degree is in public speaking.
Oh, wow.
So now that I'm doing more speaking, I'm like, this is where I wanted to be this whole time. But so yeah, our journeys are kind of opposite with this, but that was a tough time. So all of that to say, I would love for you to just talk us through, if you feel comfortable, what it's been like for you this past year to hit this place.
So I don't know that I would necessarily say that I hate everything I do. I've definitely been in that place before.
Yeah.
And you know, this is going to be a good thing to share when I'm launching my program later on. I run a program for photographers, teaching them how to shoot, edit, and incorporate video into their businesses. And there's a lot of fear around doing video. And, you know, I'm the perfect example of that. You know, I've been doing video now essentially since 2016 in some capacity and whatnot. And I am like, I guess this happens with photography too, not as much anymore. I'll deliver a gallery or I'll deliver a video and be like, I'm like sweating. I'm so scared that the client is going to either hate it or that you know, they're going to see all of the imperfections that I see. And this is where I think storytelling comes in to save my butt, because I firmly believe you can have an okay quality video, but if the story is there, people want to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you know, I think where you know, my strength is. That being said, I have been really pushing myself to get to capturing and delivering the quality of video that I want to, you know, that I envision. And when I inevitably come up short, because I always keep raising the bar. So there's never like, I keep raising the bar and I'm never reaching it because, you know, it's this like catch-22.
Do you know what Enneagram number you are? Just out of curiosity.
I do. I'm an Enneagram 9, the
Okay.
adaptive peacemaker.
Yeah, my husband is a 9.
So it actually, now that you say that, it kind of makes sense because, my motivation is for peace and harmony. And so like the fear of not having peace and harmony in, like the work that I create and the clients that I deliver it to, that just like it's going to be the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
And in my 7 years of business now, I don't know, I can't do math. I'm a creative, not a
I feel
mathematician.
you.
However many years that I've been in business, I think it's 7 now. I've only ever had one really unhappy client, and really it was nothing that I did. It was all, their projections and whatnot, because I have shared that gallery with other people, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, this is beautiful work, whatever. So all of this to say is, I definitely think that's where my creativity suffers, is that I'm constantly trying to chase this version of perfection that I keep changing the standards for. Also, a note, I am a Virgo sun and a Virgo rising, so perfection and peace is somewhat contradictory, but that's what I'm chasing. And because it's an oxymoron, it's never going to happen in my brain. So yeah, but I definitely did have this realization this year, because I spend a lot of time chasing that perfection and also, success. I have not, the one bar that I haven't raised for myself, or rather I've just given myself like different options of what that bar could look like, but there's still been a bar that I haven't reached. And it breaks my heart that I've been chasing it for so long.
Mm.
And so like, I sit here and I'm like, I just said that I'm really fucking good at what I do. So what is it? What am I doing wrong? And I could give you a long list of reasons why I haven't reached it yet. My business coach could give you a long list of reasons why I haven't, reached it yet. And so I think that's where I am this year, is that like I really had this vision of reaching it, and unless some miracles happen, it's not going to. But I think that I'm also being asked to like this is a perfect opportunity to realize that I keep raising that bar, even not even in this case, but like I'm always chasing instead of just being present in what I'm doing. So I've been practicing a lot more gratitude and just being a lot more aware, because I think that that's where this burnout and whatnot was happening. I feel like my work is better than it ever has been, and that wouldn't happen if it wasn't for the creativity that I possess.
I love that you just went through this whole realization. And I think
I
that that's the
totally
power of having conversations like that and just being
yeah.
real and telling where you're really at. Like, if you just came on here and you were like, yeah, I'm really good at what I do, and I'm going to keep being good at what I do. Bye. Like, that doesn't help anyone. It doesn't serve anyone. It doesn't serve you. It doesn't move the needle forward in your life. And one thing that I would encourage you to do too is like, think about process or creative processing, because that again is just another way to slow down and connect with yourself. And eventually it doesn't become something that you have to like tangibly practice. Like, you don't have to write
Yeah.
that prompt down every time. It's just something that like, oh, this block comes up. You're stuck in this repeating narrative in your mind. And you're like, I can't, like, I just keep getting back to this place. And I keep finding. And so giving yourself something like that, that's a pattern interrupt, so that you no longer continue in that spiral. I hope that that's encouragement to you, just to continue stepping into being the amazing creative that you are. And like you said, practicing gratitude and slowing down enough to like process your present is how we do that. I heard that you have a little gift for the listeners and watchers of Created Worthy, and Obviously, that is so kind of you. But do you want to tell us what that is and how listeners can connect with you?
Yeah, so it actually goes back to the what we were speaking about with visibility. As a videographer, I and a small business owner, I actually feel like video is honestly the gift that keeps on giving after, after you've left rooms where, you've spoken, stages that you've, taken. And so my gift to your listeners, whether they've been doing that or if they just are interested to see, how else they can utilize, this medium for their businesses. It's my guide on 4 ways to use video and photo in your business that's going to maximize your impact and amplify your message. And that's, should I share the link or are you going to share the link?
Yeah, the link will be in the show notes. So
Perfect. Yeah.
definitely go to the show notes and grab her free guide. Everything Bernadette creates is seriously so beautiful. Did you do your own branding as well? Or did you work with someone?
So as far as the brand, what part of my branding are you referring to?
The Solhaus Media, which is I
Okay.
think your newest rebrand,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Solhaus Media. So that's going to be the link. It's going to be soulhousemedia.com/4ways. Soul is SOL and house is HAUS. So I admittedly I came up, I think, with 2/3 of the name. I knew that I wanted the words house and media to be in it. And a friend of mine who actually used to do marketing for Disney way back in the day posted a story on her Instagram about the process they used to come up with the name for Tangled when it came out. And I loved the backstory to it. And I told her, I was like, oh my gosh, I've honestly been trying to come up with a business name for like 3 years. And so I gave her a little state of the union about where I was in my journey, and she was very, very kind to help me out with it. And within the first 5 minutes, we literally hopped on the call, and she's like, your business name should be Solhaus Media. That's what came to me. And I have to admit, it didn't like land with me at first, but the more time that I spent on it, we can have a whole conversation about that. But the more time I spent with it, I definitely felt like it was mine. And then when because I was in the inner circle in Pitch Club, part of what you get in that mastermind is like visual branding. So logo suite, your color palettes, your fonts.
Wow.
So Jen Ray of Concept to Creative,
Yes, love
shout out to
Jen.
her. Yes.
Yes.
She designed all of that. And I ran with it, and I designed my webpage, which is actually a little service that I offer on the side as well. I don't actively market it, but I love designing websites.
Interesting. That is so cool. And Jen, a lot of my clients have branding from Jen. She's incredible. All 3 of the books that I've managed the covers have been done by Jen.
Yeah.
So yes, I can totally see that now. She has like a very distinct professional but like beautiful style.
Yeah.
That is so fun. Where can listeners find and connect with you?
Yeah, so your listeners can find me on my website at soulhousemedia.com. You can also find me on Instagram at Solhaus Media, or my other Instagram is at Bernadette Marciniak. That's my name, and the spelling is in the show notes. And I would love a follow on both, because I'm trying to grow the Solhaus Media one, since it is the newer one. And you can also actually find me on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel where I host all my work. So that's also, you can just Google my name, Bernadette Solhaus Media, and you'll find it.
Yes. And I will add that link to the show notes as well. I'm going to follow you on YouTube because I did not know you had one.
Yeah. Whenever I do work with clients, I post it there. Maybe a YouTube channel is in the
future.
In the future, especially if I'm doing speaking engagements, I could see that happening.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. What a great pairing, speaking and videography.
Right.
Uh,
And that's actually how I like, I do brand videos, but I love capturing video of people while they're up on stage. That's a big part of what I do as well, because again, visibility, video gift that keeps on giving. You can
yeah.
use that video so many times.
Yes. I love that you do that for people. And now you are able to do it for yourself. Bernadette, I am so grateful to have spent some time with you here today and for your courage and vulnerability to share your story. Your ability to keep showing up and persevering through challenges is beyond inspiring. Keep being uniquely you, sharing your gifts with the world, and teaching others how to share their gifts as well. You, my friend, are created worthy. Thanks for listening and tuning in to the Created Worthy podcast. I hope that today's show resonated with you, and if it did, can you do me a huge favor and go leave a 5-star review? This helps more listeners find the show, and it expands the reach of the stories and concepts that are shared here. All the links and guest information are in the show notes. And if you're on social media, come hang out with me. You can find the Created Worthy podcast on both Instagram and Facebook. Or come follow along with my personal IG page, where I just share more about the real, sometimes messy life of your fellow worthy warrior. Can't wait to talk to you soon, friend. And don't forget, we are all created worthy.